When you hear the phrase unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, what comes to mind? For many, it's the European Commission, a body of 27 officials who shape laws affecting 450 million Europeans, yet whose names most citizens couldn't name. Critics call it Europe's shadow government, an opaque technocracy imposing regulations from above. Defenders argue it's the indispensable engine of European cooperation, preventing the continent from fracturing into nationalist chaos. So which is it? Is the European Commission a democratic anomaly in the heart of Europe, or a misunderstood institution doing the unglamorous work of keeping 27 countries aligned? To answer that, we need to understand what this institution actually does and why it was designed this way in the first place. The European Commission wasn't born from some bureaucratic conspiracy. Its origins lie in the ashes of World War II, when European leaders faced a stark choice: find a way to bind their nations together or risk another catastrophic conflict. The solution, proposed by French diplomat Jean Monnet and Foreign Minister Robert Schuman in 1950, was revolutionary. Rather than relying on traditional treaties that nations could abandon at will, they created supranational institutions with real power to manage shared interests. The European Coal and Steel Community, the Commission's predecessor, pooled control over the very resources that had fueled two world wars. The logic was simple but profound. Countries that share sovereignty over strategic industries can't easily go to war with each other. This approach, known as the Monnet method, embedded a crucial principle: integration through technocratic management rather than grand political federalism. The Commission was designed to be above national interests, staffed by experts who would propose policies for the common European good. When the Treaty of Rome established the European Economic Community in 1957, this model expanded. The Commission became the guardian of the treaties, the institution responsible for proposing legislation and ensuring member states actually implemented what they agreed to. It was never meant to be a government in the traditional sense, but rather an honest broker, a neutral administrator, preventing any single country from dominating the others. Fast forward to 2024, and the Commission's role has expanded far beyond managing coal and steel. Today, it stands as the European Union's executive arm, but with a unique twist that confuses many observers. Unlike national governments that both propose and execute laws, the Commission operates within a complex institutional triangle. Here's how it works. The Commission holds what's called the right of initiative, meaning it's the only body that can formally propose new EU legislation. Think of it as having a monopoly on the legislative agenda. Once the Commission drafts a proposal, it goes to two other institutions: the European Parliament, directly elected by EU citizens, and the Council of the European Union, composed of ministers from each member state's government. Both must approve legislation for it to become law. This arrangement creates a fascinating dynamic. The Commission can't simply impose its will. A proposal to regulate artificial intelligence, strengthen climate targets, or harmonize tax policy must survive scrutiny from elected parliamentarians and national governments, each with their own interests and constituencies. The Commission's power lies not in decree, but in agenda setting and technical expertise. Its approximately 32,000 employees, often portrayed as a bloated bureaucracy, actually represent a civil service smaller than many mid-sized European cities. For perspective, that's fewer staff than the city administration of Paris. Yet they're tasked with coordinating policy for an economic bloc of 450 million people. But here's where the hidden government accusation gains traction. The 27 commissioners who lead this institution aren't directly elected. Each member state nominates one commissioner, and the Commission President, currently Ursula von der Leyen, in her second term since December 2024, is proposed by the European Council and must be approved by the European Parliament. The commissioners then undergo individual hearings before parliamentary committees, a process that can be grueling. In recent years, several nominees have been rejected or withdrawn after failing to convince parliamentarians of their competence or independence. Once approved, commissioners swear an oath to serve the European interest, not their home countries. In theory, a French commissioner should advocate for what's best for Europe, even if it conflicts with Paris's preferences. This is where theory meets reality's sharp edges. Can we really expect a commissioner to completely shed national loyalties? Critics point to numerous instances where commissioners seem to favor their home countries, or where the Commission's proposals align suspiciously well with the interests of larger, more powerful member states like Germany or France. The Commission's handling of economic crises, particularly the Eurozone debt crisis of the 2010s, drew accusations that it prioritized Northern European fiscal orthodoxy over Southern European economic recovery. When the Commission enforces competition rules, smaller countries sometimes wonder if the same standards apply to corporate champions from larger nations. Yet the Commission also demonstrates remarkable independence in ways that surprise critics. It has fined American tech giants like Google billions of euros for antitrust violations, defying pressure from both the United States and member states eager to attract investment. It has challenged powerful member states over rule of law violations, threatening to withhold EU funds from Poland and Hungary when their governments undermined judicial independence. In 2020, when COVID-19 struck, the Commission coordinated the joint procurement of vaccines for all member states, preventing a destructive scramble where richer countries would have hoarded supplies while smaller nations went without. These actions suggest an institution capable of transcending narrow national interests when the stakes are high enough. The democratic deficit critique, however, persists and deserves serious examination. The term refers to the perceived gap between the EU's power and its accountability to citizens. Unlike national governments that can be voted out in elections, the Commission operates at a remove from direct democratic pressure. European Parliament elections, held every 5 years, influence the Commission's composition, but the connection feels abstract to many voters. Turnout for these elections typically hovers around 50%, significantly lower than national elections, suggesting many Europeans don't feel their vote meaningfully affects Brussels. The Commission's decision-making processes, while technically transparent, involve layers of technical committees, expert groups, and consultation procedures that can seem impenetrable to ordinary citizens. Defenders counter that this critique misunderstands the EU's constitutional architecture. The Commission isn't meant to be a government, it's an executive agency operating under strict constraints. Real democratic legitimacy flows through the European Parliament and the Council, both of which can block or amend Commission proposals. The Parliament can also dismiss the entire Commission through a vote of no confidence, a nuclear option that provides ultimate accountability. Moreover, every EU law must be implemented by member states, whose governments are directly accountable to their own voters. If citizens dislike EU regulations, they can pressure their national governments to change course in the Council or elect different representatives to the European Parliament. This defense, while constitutionally accurate, doesn't fully address the psychological disconnect many Europeans feel. The Commission's technocratic culture, necessary for managing complex policy coordination across 27 countries, can appear cold and distant. When a Commission directive affects local businesses or cultural practices, it's easy to blame faceless Brussels bureaucrats, rather than understanding the intricate negotiations and compromises that produce the rule. The Commission's communications strategy hasn't helped. For decades, it focused on talking to governments and interest groups, rather than directly engaging citizens, allowing nationalist politicians to scapegoat Brussels for unpopular policies while claiming credit for popular ones. Recent years have seen attempts to bridge this gap. The Commission under von der Leyen has emphasized political priorities over pure technocracy, framing initiatives like the European Green Deal and digital sovereignty as grand projects that citizens can rally behind. The Conference on the Future of Europe, concluded in 2022, attempted to gather citizen input on EU reforms, though skeptics questioned whether it would lead to meaningful change. The fundamental tension remains. How do you create democratic legitimacy for an institution designed to be above politics, operating in a union where citizens' primary loyalty remains to their nation-state, not to Europe as a whole? Looking ahead, the Commission faces mounting pressures that will test its model. Geopolitical competition with China and an increasingly unpredictable United States demands faster, more decisive action than the EU's consensus-based system easily allows. Climate change requires coordinating policies that will transform economies and disrupt industries, inviting fierce resistance from affected groups. Enlargement to include Ukraine and other candidates would add complexity to an already unwieldy system. Some argue the Commission needs more power to act decisively in crises. Others insist it already has too much and should be reined in. The debate over its legitimacy isn't going away. So, is the European Commission a hidden government? The answer is both yes and no, depending on what you mean by the question. If you're asking whether it's an all-powerful, unaccountable bureaucracy imposing its will on helpless nations, the answer is clearly no. The Commission operates within tight legal constraints, subject to oversight from elected bodies and member state governments. Its proposals can be rejected, its actions challenged in court, and its leadership replaced. It's not a government in the sense of having independent authority to tax, spend, or coerce. But if you're asking whether it exercises significant power in ways that aren't always transparent or directly accountable to voters, the answer is yes. The Commission shapes the European agenda, decides which issues get legislative attention, and interprets how EU law applies in countless situations. Its technical expertise gives it informational advantages over parliamentarians and national officials. Its permanence, compared to rotating council presidencies and parliamentary terms, provides institutional memory and continuity that translates into influence. In this sense, it does function as a kind of government, albeit one embedded in a unique constitutional structure without parallel in world history. The real question isn't whether the Commission is democratic enough by the standards of a nation-state, because the EU isn't a nation-state and was never meant to be. The question is whether this particular institutional design, born from the specific historical circumstances of post-war Europe, remains fit for purpose in the 21st century. Can a technocratic model, built for managing coal and steel, adapt to regulating artificial intelligence and geopolitical competition? Can an institution designed to be above politics remain legitimate in an era of populist backlash against elites? These are the challenges that will define the Commission's future, and by extension, the future of European integration itself. The European Commission remains one of the world's most unusual political experiments, an attempt to create supranational governance without creating a superstate, to pool sovereignty while preserving national identity, to be both technocratic and democratic. It's messy, often frustrating, and frequently misunderstood. But perhaps that's inevitable for an institution trying to unite a continent that spent centuries tearing itself apart. Whether it's a hidden government or an indispensable mediator depends less on the institution itself than on what we believe Europe should be. Thank you for exploring this complex institution with me. If this analysis helped you understand the European Commission's role in European governance, I invite you to subscribe for more in-depth examinations of geopolitical questions and EU affairs. Activate notifications to join future discussions and share your perspective in the comments below. What other aspects of European integration would you like to see examined? Your engagement helps shape the topics we explore together as we make sense of our interconnected world.